How is it going? Welcome to today's YouTube video. I am online coach Leo Alvarez, specializing in weight loss. And in today's YouTube video, I'm going to speak to you about intermittent fasting, my opinion on it, the pros, the cons, whether or not you should do it. And by the end of this video, I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should do it, but I'm going to help you decide whether or not you should perhaps try it out, because it is a nutritional approach that is growing in a lot of popularity nowadays. It doesn't look like it's going to die down anytime soon. So as someone who's done intermittent fasting many times before to help them lose weight and looked into the research on it, I thought, I would be a great person to help break down the pros and cons on intermittent fasting for you. And on that note, I do want to mention that I'm going to speak about intermittent fasting specifically from a weight loss perspective. But otherwise, I'm going to get stuck straight in. So I'm going to start off with the pros. And the pros are that intermittent fasting, as I said, it can potentially help you lose weight. And the only reason why I say potentially is because at the end of the day, the only thing that can guarantee weight loss is a calorie deficit. Intermittent fasting can just potentially help with that because it restricts the time you have available to eat, and if you restrict the time you have available to eat, then you're more likely to be in a calorie deficit. And an example I could give you is, so let's say you have two people. One person does intermittent fasting, one person doesn't. They both sleep for 8 hours in a day. The person who doesn't do intermittent fasting then has a 16-hour window to eat and drink. Whereas the person who does do intermittent fasting, let's say they fast for 8 hours. That means that instead of a 16-hour window, they then have an 8-hour window to eat and drink. And obviously because they have an 8-hour window rather than a 16-hour window, they're a lot more likely to eat and drink less calories, which means they're more likely to be in a calorie deficit. Again, it doesn't guarantee a calorie deficit, but it can increase the chances of you being in. Another pro that I really like about intermittent fasting is that if you don't have an appetite in the morning or you don't have an appetite in the evening, it can help you take advantage of that. So let's use myself as an example on this one. Throughout the year, sometimes I'll go through phases where I really enjoy making breakfast and having my breakfast, and then there'll be other phases in the year where I'm not fussed about breakfast and I have zero appetite in the morning. If I'm ever in a period of my life where I want to lose a bit of weight, I will then not have breakfast anymore. It's just an easy way for me to be in a deficit because again, I'm not having breakfast and I'm only having lunch and dinner. And if I'm going from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day, then I'm more likely to be in a calorie deficit. Another pro that I really like about intermittent fasting is that no foods or drinks are off limit, which is a huge pro, by the way. And secondly, the hours are flexible. If your hours are flexible, you can set up your intermittent fasting approach to however is best for your life. And that just means it's so much more sustainable. And obviously you're a lot more likely to stick to it in the long term. And if you can stick to it in the long term, then you're more likely to see weight loss results with it. Another pro that I really like, as someone who also feels the most productive in the morning and likes to get the most work done in the morning, that's just perfect for me because then I'm not worrying about cooking, I'm not worrying about what I'm going to eat, I'm not worrying about breakfast. I can just dedicate the morning to doing what I need to do and then carrying on the rest of the day as normal. Another massive pro is that research shows that intermittent fasting can help slow down aging, it can help prevent diseases. Although this is something I'm a little bit on the fence about because I don't know if it's actually because of the intermittent fasting as well. So you have to think about it like this. A lot of these studies, they're done on individuals who have lost a lot of weight as a result of intermittent fasting. But maybe it's not because of the intermittent fasting itself that those benefits happened, but more because of the weight loss that happened. Regardless of whether you're intermittent fasting, if you lose about 10, 15, 20 kg, then those positive benefits are going to happen anyway. Of course, if you go from obese to overweight or overweight to a healthy weight range, then you're more likely to delay aging anyway. You're more likely to prevent diseases anyway. I think those are benefits that I'm not going to just dismiss straight away, but it is something that I will take with a pinch of salt. Anyway, just so I don't sound like I'm putting intermittent fasting on this huge pedestal now, it's time to go into the cons because like I said, I like to look at everything in a critical manner. And I don't know if this is so much a con, but it is an important thing to bear in mind. But a lot of people don't even realize you're intermittent fasting anyway. Because think of it like this, if you sleep for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, you're not drinking or eating anything within that time, so you're fasting. That is a fasting period. And maybe you think, oh Leo, you're talking rubbish, blah, blah, blah. Realize this, the first meal of the day is literally called break fast. Breakfast. You are breaking the fast for your day. Whether you realize it or not, you've been doing it your entire life. Another potential con that I want to get stuck into is that it might not even guarantee weight loss because as I said before, the only thing that will guarantee you weight loss is a calorie deficit. And guess what? If you're intermittent fasting but you're still eating too many calories, then it's not going to make any difference. So a calorie deficit is still what you need to prioritize most when it comes to losing weight. Another potential con, and this is something I've seen often, is that some people get super OTT with it. So they'll be extremely rigid with their eating window. For example, let's say you break your fast at 6 p.m. That person at 5:55 p.m. will be staring at the clock, counting down the seconds, waiting for it to hit 6 p.m. And I think if you're going to that extent, you need to chill out a little bit, realize that if you want to break your fast 5 minutes early, then that's absolutely fine. You know, breaking your fast 5 minutes early, it doesn't really matter. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to mutate. You're not going to grow a third arm. You're not going to gain weight. You're just breaking it 5 minutes early. And if that's something you want to do on the occasional day because you just feel a lot hungrier than usual, then that's absolutely fine as well. It's something I also do. I'm not super rigid about my times. If anything, I have like a half an hour, give or take type of window depending on my appetite levels for that day. So don't get too rigid with your eating times. Another potential con, and this is a big one, is that it can potentially worsen your relationship with food. So if you have a history of eating disorders, I would probably be very skeptical of intermittent fasting, because what I've seen often is that sometimes intermittent fasting can lead to more of a binge restrict cycle. I'm going to give you a random example, and this isn't unheard of, this isn't rare, this happens more often than you think. And this could actually be you or someone you know, where they'll be intermittent fasting because, you know, they think it's going to guarantee weight loss, they think it's magical, they think it's the best thing ever. They're fasting all day, they're waiting for the clock to hit 7 p.m. and then the moment 7 p.m. strikes, floodgates open. They eat everything in sight. They don't stop, they have no control, they just eat. And at the end of the day, they probably don't think anything of it. Whereas in reality, they don't even realize that they've now put themselves in a binge restrict cycle. And if that's you and you feel very focused on the times that you can't eat and very focused on the times that you can eat, and then when you can eat, floodgates open and you can't stop eating, then maybe again, intermittent fasting probably isn't for you. The last thing you want to do if you want to lose weight is worsen your relationship with food. And another potential con that I really want to mention is that some people take intermittent fasting to the extreme. This is a typical thing in the fitness industry, where the fitness industry just loves to run on the pendulum of extremes. Everything is either right or wrong, good or bad. Things don't work like that. You have to figure out what works for you, figure out what doesn't work for you, and apply it. The reason why I say that is because when it comes to intermittent fasting specifically, I've seen some people just fast and not eat anything for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. That's entirely unnecessary. And I think if that's you as well, you need to chill out. I think most people who do this, potentially you included, have been misled by someone on the internet, potentially someone who has a financial gain from pushing their intermittent fasting. I don't know if you want to say it's an agenda, but pushing intermittent fasting to people. They probably sell their books on intermittent fasting. They probably have courses on intermittent fasting. And again, you don't need to be fasting for 2, 3, 4, 5 days straight. There is no extra benefit from that. And if that's you, chill out. Just do it for a few hours in a day, and you don't need to do anything beyond that, because if anything, I bet you're making your weight loss harder to come by, because I bet you again that will only lead into another binge restrict cycle. You probably thought of autophagy. To be honest, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that word correctly because I've only ever seen it written down.
Autophagy.
And you're fasting for 3, 4, 5 days straight because again, that's something you want. But meanwhile, you're drinking loads of alcohol, you eat a lot of junk food, you have no thought towards being in a calorie deficit, you don't know what a calorie deficit is, you're barely exercising, you're never going on walks, and honestly, your priorities are in the wrong place. So don't let your priorities be on the wrong place. Focus on what matters. To be honest, I don't want to sound like too much of a Debbie Downer, because again, I have listed loads of pros, I have listed the cons, and ultimately just do whatever you think is going to be best for you. At the end of the day, I think the only way that you can realize whether or not you like it is by trying it. Remember, as I said, I think I said this at the start of the video, I don't actually care if you do intermittent fasting or not. It doesn't affect me in any way. I have no financial gain from it. I'm just here to tell you the pros, the cons, and help you figure out whether or not you should try it. Anyway, any questions on the back of this, always just fire them away. Put them down in the comments if you want. I'll always respond to you. Otherwise, take care. I do hope this video helped, and I'll see you around. I've got to record a YouTube video now, Nero. I can't play right now, okay? After we'll play.